Across global industries, the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle is mandated in almost every quality manual. Yet, in practice, it frequently degrades into a static, bureaucratic checklist, bringing continuous improvement to a grinding halt. When W. Edwards Deming popularized this framework in the 1950s, it became the foundation of modern quality management. It was designed as a relentless feedback loop. Today, corporate teams routinely use it merely for post-mortem audits and compliance, filling out the paperwork only after a project has ended. To function correctly, the outcomes of your execution must actively dictate and recalibrate the systemic standards for the subsequent cycle. If work is executed in a linear sequence, the process assumes the initial plan was perfect. A closed-circuit loop forces the gap between the plan and the actual outcome to become the data for the next round. Severing this circuit at any individual phase neutralizes the entire system. Without data flowing backward, continuous improvement is impossible. You can identify a broken loop when an organization dedicates resources to solve the exact same problem twice. Repetitive failures usually signal a flaw in the loop's underlying architecture rather than a simple error on the factory floor. We can diagnose this architectural breakdown by isolating the weak points in the cause and effect chain, starting with the plan phase. Teams frequently skip rigorous root cause analysis. They prioritize rapid action, treating the symptoms rather than targeting the underlying mechanics of the problem. This creates a predictable downstream consequence. A weak plan generates scattered, reactive work, where critical priorities are suffocated by urgent daily tasks. This fragmentation carries over to the do phase. The primary failure point is executing work without empirical, time-stamped evidence. Lacking actual data logs, teams enter evaluation relying entirely on memory. The review process devolves into subjective arguments over what happened. Attempting to evaluate a process without both a clear root cause logic and hard execution data reduces operational management to guesswork. The check phase carries its own specific pathology. Often, management establishes a review cadence that is too slow to catch weak signals from the floor. When checks are delayed until the end of the line, minor process deviations silently accumulate, eventually becoming severe downstream defects that require complete rework. Effective check phases serve as active course correction, allowing teams to pivot while the work is still in progress. Even if a problem is correctly identified and solved, organizations commit a fatal error in the act phase. They complete the cycle without physically or procedurally updating the workplace standard. This incurs a massive learning cost. The solution remains isolated in a single operator's head, only to be entirely lost the moment the shift changes. Without standardizing the new method, the organization guarantees it will pay the exact same financial penalty on the next shift. Achieving quality at source, preventing defects upstream rather than catching them downstream, requires a specific multi-tiered measurement architecture. This diagram illustrates the required structure. At the peak is the Key Goal Indicator, or KGI. This represents the ultimate lagging outcome, like reducing customer complaints. The middle layer is the Key Performance Indicator. The KPI measures the interim health and velocity of the process, such as cycle time or defect rates during production. The foundational layer is the Key Do Indicator. The KDI tracks the leading behavioral execution occurring on the floor, measuring specific actions like completing a daily equipment check. Information moves through this structure bidirectionally. Raw execution data from the floor flows upward, while strategic targets cascade downward from the peak. Relying on a single metric creates massive blind spots. Measuring only the KGI alerts leadership to failure after the damage is done. Measuring only the KDI verifies that employees are busy without proving their work is actually effective. Deploying this tri-level architecture allows leadership to simultaneously verify that the plan is being executed and that the execution is delivering the target. We see this architecture actively applied in a Tijuana high-voltage cable factory. Specifically, Cell 2311 targeted severe defect elimination on their floor. During the plan phase, management avoided issuing vague directives to be more careful. Instead, they used Ishikawa diagrams and process flowcharts to isolate exact mechanical faults in their riveting and labeling stations. In the do phase, they executed 6 highly specific measurable adjustments. This included installing a second, already owned riveting machine and deploying new material racks, avoiding massive capital expenditures. This chart shows the empirical results measured during the check phase. Daily production surged by 88.2%, defects dropped by 74.4%, and dead time fell from 296 minutes to just 24. To ensure these gains held during the ACT phase, the team permanently altered the process. They standardized physical fixtures and replaced text-heavy manuals with picture-based visual aids to eliminate operator confusion. These efficiency gains were engineered by reconfiguring systemic constraints and applying empirical data to the physical process. Professional PDCA bypasses the reliance on final inspection. It requires designing robust, actionable controls right at the source of the work. Maintaining this feedback loop requires a structure that tracks only the variables necessary for a decision. This 7-box framework is the minimum viable architecture, linking goals to measurable gaps and assigning owners to evidence. Within this matrix, evidence, cadence, and the final decision prevent the loop from failing. Without them, feedback never reaches the next plan. A cycle remains incomplete until leadership makes a definitive decision on what to do next. Standardize, adjust, escalate, or stop. Standardization acts as a permanent physical or procedural lock. It prevents the operation from ever sliding back to its previous baseline. PDCA serves as the functional engine that converts workplace observations into permanently upgraded operational standards.